What if Issei achieved Ultra Instinct in Riser game after he lost Rias? The scoreboard flickered mockingly in the artificial sky of the rating game dimension. Riser Phoenix 15 pieces remaining. Rias Gremory 0 pieces remaining. Issei Hayate lay sprawled on the scorched earth, his body broken, his sacred gear flickering weakly around his left arm. Blood dripped from countless wounds, mixing with the dirt and ash that surrounded him. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. His vision swam, darkening at the edges, but he forced his eyes to remain open, forced himself to witness the moment his world ended. Above him, Riser Phoenix stood untouched, his golden hair perfectly coiffed, his crimson suit without a single crease. The Phoenix heir didn't even look winded. Why would he? Issei hadn't managed to land a single meaningful blow. The healing flames of the Phoenix had rendered every desperate attack, every sacrificial gambit, completely meaningless. Is this truly the Red Dragon Emperor? Riser's voice dripped with theatrical disappointment. The legendary Sekiryutai, reduced to this pathetic display? I expected more from someone bearing a Longinus-class sacred gear. Issei tried to push himself up. His arms trembled, gave out. He collapsed back to the ground, and the impact sent fresh agony lancing through his broken ribs. Issei. Rias's voice cut through the haze of pain. He turned his head, each movement an exercise in torment, and saw her. His master, his king, the woman he'd sworn to protect. Rias Gremory stood in the observation area, her hands pressed against the magical barrier that separated spectators from combatants. Tears streamed down her beautiful face, her blue-green eyes wide with horror and grief. Behind her, he could see the others. Akino with her hand over her mouth, her usual playful demeanor shattered. Kaniko's normally stoic face twisted with anguish. Kiba looked away, unable to watch. Asia sobbed openly, her healing magic useless from outside the game dimension. Rias. Issei croaked, tasting copper. I'm sorry. I couldn't. The game is over, Riser announced, addressing the crowd of spectating nobles with a grand gesture. As per our agreement, Rias Gremory will become my wife. Our marriage will proceed as— No! Issei screamed, and something in his chest, something beyond the physical pain, tore open. I won't. I can't let you. He channeled every remaining drop of power into his sacred gear. The Welsh dragon's gauntlet flared with emerald light, brighter than it had ever burned before. Drake's voice echoed in his mind, concerned but powerless. Partner, you must stop. Your body cannot handle. Boost. Issei ignored the warning. Boost. 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 His power doubled again and again, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Riser stood there, amused, letting him try. That casual cruelty hurt worse than any wound. How admirable, Riser said mockingly. The pawn fights to the bitter end. But you see, Issei Hayate, this is the difference between us. I was born to power. Raised in it, trained by the finest instructors in the underworld. And you? You're just a perverted human boy playing at being a devil. You never had a chance. The words struck deeper than any blade. Because they were true, weren't they? Issei had only been reincarnated as a devil a few months ago. He'd spent most of that time fantasizing about breasts, instead of training properly. He'd relied on raw enthusiasm and the power of his sacred gear without truly understanding how to use it. And now Rias would pay the price for his weakness. Issei, stop! Rias cried out. Please, you'll die. I don't want you to die. Her words broke something fundamental inside him. She was worried about him. Even now, facing a loveless marriage, forced servitude to a man she despised, she was more concerned with his safety than her own freedom. What kind of man was he? What kind of servant? He'd made promises, grand, foolish promises, about protecting her, about making her happy, about being the strongest. But they'd all been empty words from a weakling who didn't understand the first thing about the supernatural world he'd stumbled into. I hereby declare Riser Phoenix the victor of this rating game, the announcer's voice boomed across the dimension. By the laws and traditions of Devil Society, Rias Gremory will. Issei never heard the rest. His overtaxed body finally gave out. The world went black, and he welcomed the darkness. At least in unconsciousness, he wouldn't have to face his failure. 3 hours later, Issei woke in his own bed at the Occult Research Club, fully healed but feeling more broken than when he'd lost consciousness. Asia had used her twilight healing on him the moment they'd returned from the raiding game dimension. Physically, he was perfect. Spiritually, emotionally, he was shattered. The room was dark. Night had fallen over Co Academy. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake of the raiding game in his mind. Each tactical error. Each wasted opportunity. Each moment of weakness. The door opened. Rias entered, and the sight of her sent fresh pain through his chest. She wore a simple black dress, morning clothes, he realized. Her usually vibrant crimson hair seemed dull in the dim light. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. "You're awake," she said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. She tried to smile, but it came out wrong, broken. "Asia did an excellent job healing you. You'll be back to full strength in no time." "Bucho." Issei's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I failed you. I was pathetic out there. I couldn't." "Don't." Rias placed a finger against his lips. "Don't apologize for fighting with everything you had. You were magnificent, Issei. You never gave up. Even when it was hopeless, you kept fighting for me. But I lost. I lost you." Rias's fragile composure finally broke. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "The wedding is in 1 week. My parents have already sent the formal announcements. Riser's family is preparing the ceremony. It's really happening." Issei sat up, grabbing her hands. They were cold, trembling. "There has to be something we can do. Another challenge, a loophole, anything." "There's nothing." Rias's voice was hollow. "A rating game result cannot be overturned except by another rating game, and Riser will never agree to a rematch." "Why would he? He won easily. In Devil Society, might makes right. And we weren't mighty enough." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and what Issei saw in her eyes devastated him. Not blame or anger. He could have handled those. Instead, he saw resignation, acceptance of a fate she'd fought against her entire life, now inevitable because of his weakness. "I want you to know," Rias continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "that I don't regret making you my servant. Even if it all ends like this, I don't regret the time we've had together. You brought joy into my life, Issei. You made me laugh. You made me feel free. Like I could choose my own path instead of having it chosen for me." "Past tense," Issei noted bitterly. "You're already talking like it's over." "Because it is." Rias stood, pulling her hands from his grip. "I'm sorry, Issei. I tried to shield you from the harsh realities of Devil Society, but I can't anymore. Some battles can't be won with determination and heart. Some enemies are simply too strong, too established, too far beyond our reach." She walked toward the door, and panic seized Issei's chest. This felt like goodbye. Like she was already gone. "Bucho, wait, I'll see you tomorrow," Rias said without turning around. We'll continue club activities as normal until the wedding. Let's make the most of the time we have left." The door closed behind her, and Issei was alone again. He sat there in the darkness, his mind racing. Everything Rias said made logical sense. Riser was too powerful. Devil Society's rules were absolute. There was no path to victory, but logic and sense didn't matter to Issei Hayadu. What mattered was the crushing weight of failure in his chest. The image of Rias in tears, the knowledge that in 1 week, she would be bound to a man she hated, all because he'd been too weak to stop it. "Drag," Issei said aloud, activating his sacred gear. The familiar weight of the red gauntlet materialized on his arm. "There has to be something we can do. Some power we haven't unlocked yet. The balance breaker you mentioned, partner. Achieving balance breaker requires time, training, and extreme circumstances," Drake's voice rumbled in his mind. "It cannot be rushed. And even if you achieved it now, it might not be enough. The Phoenix regeneration is one of the most troublesome abilities in existence. We would need power that could overcome immortality itself. Then we find that power. We train. In 1 week? Partner, be realistic. I understand your pain, truly I do. But some chasms cannot be crossed, no matter how desperately we wish otherwise. Even Drake, the legendary Welsh dragon, was telling him it was hopeless. Issei lay back down, his sacred gear fading away. He closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept returning to the raiding game, to every moment of his inadequacy. He'd been utterly outclassed. Riser hadn't even taken him seriously, had treated the entire battle like a mild inconvenience, a formality to endure before claiming his prize. Hours passed. The darkness deepened. And somewhere in that endless night, something inside Issei Hayato began to change. He'd always relied on others to save him. His sacred gear to provide power. Asia to heal him. Rias to give him purpose. But what had he actually contributed? What strength had been truly his own? None. He'd been a vessel for borrowed power, a child playing with weapons he didn't understand. Never again, Issei whispered into the darkness. I'll never be that weak again. I'll never let anyone I care about suffer because of my failure. Even if it kills me, even if I have to tear myself apart, I will become strong enough to protect them. The words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Just more empty promises from someone who couldn't deliver. But what else could he do? Give up? Accept defeat? No. That wasn't who Issei Hayato was. He might be weak, pathetic, a perverted idiot, but he was stubborn. Unreasonably, irrationally stubborn. He got up, dressed in his training clothes, and headed down to the Occult Research Club's training room in the basement. If he only had a week, he'd use every second of it. He'd train until his body broke, then heal and train more. Maybe it wouldn't be enough. Probably it wouldn't. But at least he'd know he'd tried everything. The training room was a large underground space with reinforced walls designed to withstand magical combat. Rias had explained once that it was connected to a separate dimension to prevent damage to the actual school. Right now, it was empty and silent. Issei stepped into the center of the room and activated his sacred gear. Boost! The familiar sensation of power flowing through him. He threw a punch at the air, imagining Riser's smug face. Then another. And another. His movements were clumsy, unrefined. He knew the basics of martial arts only because Kiba had given him some pointers, but he'd never taken it seriously. Too busy being a pervert. Faster, he muttered to himself. Stronger. I need to be, partner. Meaningless repetition won't help, Drake cautioned. You need proper technique, strategy, understanding of. I know! Issei shouted, his voice echoing in the empty chamber. I know I need all of that. But I don't have time, Drake. I don't have time to learn properly, to train correctly, to become strong the right way. I just need. I need. What did he need? A miracle? Divine intervention? Some hidden power that would suddenly make him capable of fighting on Riser's level? Impossible. Reality didn't work that way. Exhausted, frustrated, Issei dropped to his knees. His fists clenched so hard his fingernails drew blood from his palms. The pain felt appropriate, a physical manifestation of his inner torment. I'm useless, he said, the words bitter as poison. Completely useless. He stayed there, kneeling in the training room, for what felt like hours. The darkness pressed in around him. The silence was oppressive, and in that void, Issei touched something he never experienced before, true despair. Not the momentary setbacks he'd faced before. Not the embarrassment of social failures or the sting of rejection. This was deeper, a fundamental understanding of his own powerlessness in a world where power was everything. He was an ant pretending to be a dragon, and reality had finally caught up with him. Perhaps that's why he didn't notice the presence until it was too late. The attack came without warning. A figure materialized from the shadows, one of Riser's servants, a woman in black tactical gear. Xuelan, if Issei remembered correctly. She moved with deadly grace, a spinning kick aimed at his head. In his despair, Issei didn't even react. Part of him almost welcomed it. At least unconsciousness would provide escape from his thoughts. But then something strange happened. His body moved, not consciously. Not because he'd decided to dodge. His body simply shifted, tilting backward at the perfect angle for Xuelan's foot to whistle past his face, missing by millimeters. The movement was fluid, effortless, as if choreographed. Xuelan's eyes widened in surprise. She twisted midair, attempting another strike. Again, Issei's body responded without conscious input. He swayed left, and her fist passed through empty space where his head had been a microsecond earlier. What? Xiaolan began, but Issei was already moving, except it wasn't Issei moving. Not really. It was as if someone else had taken control of his body, someone who knew exactly how to fight, where to step, when to strike. His right hand shot forward in a simple straight punch, no wasted motion, perfect technique. It connected with Xiaolan's solar plexus with devastating force. The impact sent her flying backward, crashing into the reinforced wall hard enough to crack it. Issei stared at his own hand, confused and terrified. What just happened? He hadn't made a conscious decision to dodge or counterattack. His body had just done it. Impossible, Drake breathed, awe in the dragon's voice. Partner, what did you just do? I don't know, Issei admitted. His heart was racing, but his body felt strangely calm. I didn't think. I just moved. Xiaolan struggled to her feet, coughing, her earlier confidence replaced by wariness. Lord Riser sent me to deliver a message. He wants you to know that resistance is futile. He won fairly, and Rias-sama will be his bride. If you try to interfere with the wedding, there will be consequences. She pulled out a teleportation circle, clearly intending to flee. But before she could activate it, Issei moved again, that same unconscious, perfect movement. He crossed the distance between them faster than should have been possible for someone of his level, his hand reaching out. Xiaolan tried to block. Her martial arts training was excellent, her reflexes honed by centuries of combat. It didn't matter. Issei's body flowed around her defenses like water, and his palm pressed against her chest. Boosted gear gift, he said, and he wasn't even sure where the words came from. A pulse of transferred power, and Xiaolan's eyes rolled back. She collapsed, unconscious but unharmed. Issei stood over her, breathing hard now, his mind racing. What was this? Some new ability of his sacred gear? A technique Drake had hidden from him? No, partner. This is not the Red Dragon's power, Drake said slowly, carefully. This is something else entirely. Something I've only heard of in ancient legends. A state of being that transcends thought, where the body moves with perfect efficiency, unburdened by the limitations of conscious decision-making. What are you talking about? The old myths call it many things. Mushin. The selfless state. The void. But the essence is always the same, a level of mastery where technique becomes unnecessary because the body simply knows the perfect response to any situation. Warriors spend lifetimes trying to achieve even a glimpse of this state, and most never succeed. But I don't have any mastery, Issei protested. I'm terrible at fighting. I just started learning a few months ago. Exactly. Which is why this should be impossible. And yet, Drake trailed off, and Issei could feel the dragon's confusion and excitement. Something unprecedented was happening. Issei looked down at his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. The despair that had consumed him minutes ago felt distant now, muted. His mind was clear in a way it had never been before. No, not clear. Empty. Peacefully, perfectly empty. And in that emptiness, he felt something stir. Not power exactly, but potential. Like a door had opened inside him, leading to a place beyond thought, beyond conscious limitation. He closed his eyes, trying to understand what had changed. In his mind's eye, he saw the fight with Riser replayed, but differently now. He saw openings he missed, inefficiencies in his movements, wasted energy in every attack. He'd been thinking too much, trying too hard, letting his emotions drive his actions. What if he didn't think at all? What if he let his body simply be? Partner, are you alright? Drake's concerned voice broke through his contemplation. Yeah, Issei said, and he meant it. For the first time since losing the rating game, he felt something other than despair. Not hope exactly. That would be premature. But possibility. Drake, I think something broke in me during that fight. Something that needed to break. Explain. I've been relying on thinking my way through battles. Using tactics, strategy, planning my next move. But I'm not good at that stuff. My brain isn't wired for complex combat analysis. So I was always a step behind, always reacting too slowly, always making mistakes. And now I'm wondering what would happen if I stopped thinking altogether. If I just let my body respond naturally, without my conscious mind getting in the way. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, Drake warned. Combat instinct is developed through years of training and experience. You have either, maybe. Issei opened his eyes, staring at the unconscious Xuelan. But I just dodged and countered a fighter with centuries of experience, and I did it without thinking. That has to mean something. He walked to the training dummy in the corner of the room, a magical construct designed to fight back against practitioners. Normally it was set to match the user's level. Issei adjusted it to maximum difficulty. The dummy activated, immediately launching into a complex attack pattern that would challenge even experienced combatants. Issei didn't prepare a defense or plan a counterattack. He just let go. His body moved on its own. Not the clumsy movements of before, but fluid, efficient motion. He dodged left, ducked right, swayed backward, each motion perfectly calibrated to avoid the dummy's strikes by the minimum necessary distance. No wasted energy. No unnecessary flourishes. And when he counterattacked, it was devastating. Simple punches and kicks, but placed exactly where they needed to be, with precisely the right amount of force. The training dummy, designed to withstand attacks from high-class devils, cracked and shattered under the assault. When it was over, Issei stood in the center of the training room, surrounded by the dummy's remains, breathing steadily. He felt tired but not exhausted. His body had exerted only the exact amount of energy required, nothing more. Remarkable, Drake said, and the dragon actually sounded shaken. In all my thousands of years, across countless hosts, I have never witnessed anything quite like this. Partner, I don't know what you stumbled upon, but it may be more significant than the balance breaker itself. Issei looked down at his hands again. They weren't the hands of a weak pervert anymore. Or maybe they were, but they were also something else now. Something that had awakened in his moment of absolute despair. 1 week, Issei said quietly. I have 1 week until Rias's wedding. That's not enough time to master this, whatever it is. No, it isn't, Drake agreed. But perhaps it's enough time to give Riser the shock of his life, Issei finished, a fierce determination replacing the earlier despair. I'm not promising I'll win. I'm not even promising I'll survive. But I swear on everything I am, Riser Phoenix is going to remember the name Issei Hayato. He deactivated his sacred gear and headed for the stairs. He needed to talk to Rias, to tell her not to give up yet. He needed to convince Riser to give him another chance, even if he had to grovel or beg or make a deal with the devil himself, which, given he already was a devil, seemed redundant but fitting. Most importantly, he needed to understand this new state he touched. This emptiness that had given him power beyond his level. He didn't have a name for it yet, but he could feel it inside him, waiting. A technique that transcended technique. A power that came from abandoning the very concept of power. As Issei climbed the stairs, leaving the destroyed training room behind, he didn't notice the silver-haired figure watching from the shadows. Nor did he see the expression of shocked recognition on that figure's face. Impossible, Azazel whispered to himself, adjusting his glasses with trembling fingers. It can't be. Not here. Not in a teenage reincarnated devil. That state is supposed to be myth, legend, something even the gods only theorized about. The Governor-General of the Fallen Angels stared at the training room where Issei Hayato had just accessed something that shouldn't exist, a technique spoken of in the oldest texts, demonstrated by no living being in recorded history, a technique called, in the most ancient languages, Ultra Instinct. And if this boy could truly master it, the entire balance of the supernatural world was about to shift in ways no one could predict. Dawn broke over Ko Academy, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that seemed almost mocking in their beauty. Issei Hayato hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night in the training room, pushing his body to its absolute limits, trying desperately to recreate that strange state he touched during his encounter with Xuelan. It wasn't working. Every time he tried to force that emptiness, that perfect clarity of movement, his conscious mind got in the way. The harder he tried to not think, the more he thought about not thinking. It was like trying to fall asleep by commanding yourself to sleep. The very effort defeated the purpose. Damn it! Issei punched the reinforced wall, leaving a small crater. His knuckles bled, but he barely felt the pain. Why can't I do it again? Because you're trying, Drake said with infinite patience. The Welsh dragon had been coaching him all night, but even the legendary dragon seemed uncertain about how to proceed. That state you achieved, it came when you weren't trying at all. When you had given up completely. When your conscious mind had no expectations or desires, your body simply acted. So what? I need to despair every time I want to access this power. Issei slumped against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. That's not exactly a reliable combat strategy. No, but it tells us something important. This ability, I've been searching my memories all night, consulting with the remnants of my previous hosts, exists outside the normal hierarchy of supernatural power. It's not something you can train in the conventional sense. It's not about accumulating magical energy or mastering techniques. It's about what? Surrendering control. Trusting your body's wisdom over your mind's interference. For someone like you, partner, who has always relied on emotion and passion to fuel your strength, this represents a complete paradigm shift. Issei closed his eyes, trying to understand. His entire approach to combat had always been emotional. He fought hardest when he was angry, when he was protecting someone, when his perverted desires gave him motivation. The idea of fighting from a place of complete emotional detachment seemed fundamentally wrong. But that moment last night, dodging Xuelan's attacks without thought, moving with impossible precision, had felt more right than anything he'd ever experienced, like his body had finally been free to do what it was meant to do, without his inadequate mind holding it back. Issei? He opened his eyes to find Asia Argento standing at the training room entrance, concern etched across her gentle features. The former nun carried a tray with breakfast, rice, miso soup, grilled fish. The sight made his stomach growl. He hadn't eaten since before the raiding game yesterday. Asia, you didn't have to. You've been down here all night, Asia interrupted, setting the tray beside him. I could sense your magical energy fluctuating. You need to eat and rest, Issei-san. Pushing yourself like this will only. I don't have time to rest. Issei grabbed the rice bowl, shoveling food into his mouth with desperate efficiency. 6 days, Asia? 6 days until Bucho becomes Riser's wife. 6 days to become strong enough to challenge him again. Asia's expression crumbled. She'd been crying too. Her eyes were red and puffy. Issei-san, what happened yesterday wasn't your fault. Riser-sama is a high-class devil from a prestigious family. He's been training since birth. You've only been a devil for a few months. No one expected you to. I expected me to. The words came out harsher than intended, and Asia flinched. Issei immediately felt guilty. Sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. I made a promise to protect Bucho, to make her happy. And I failed. Completely. Utterly. But you tried so hard. Everyone saw how you never gave up, even when trying isn't enough. Issei stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the tray. Don't you understand? In this world, in Devil Society, good intentions and hard work mean nothing if you're not strong enough to back them up. Riser proved that yesterday. He wasn't even trying, Asia. He treated our entire peerage like a joke. He began pacing, the food forgotten despite his hunger. And the worst part? He was right to. We were a joke. I was a joke, walking around with this legendary sacred gear, acting like I was special, when I couldn't even scratch someone who was actually powerful. Asia stood, moving toward him with her hands clasped in prayer. Issei-san, please don't talk about yourself that way. You're not a. Last night something happened. The sudden shift in topic made Asia pause. Issei turned to face her, and something in his eyes must have looked different because she took an involuntary step back. One of Riser's servants attacked me. Xuelan. She came to deliver a threat, probably expecting to beat me down easily since I was already broken. But something inside me changed. I moved without thinking, without planning. My body just knew what to do, he demonstrated, moving through the motions in slow motion, the dodge, the counter, the perfectly placed strike. Even at reduced speed, there was something eerie about the precision. I defeated her in seconds, Asia. A combatant with centuries of experience, and I didn't even think about it. It was like my conscious mind wasn't involved at all. Partner, perhaps you shouldn't. Asia needs to know, Drake. They all need to know. Issei looked at the former nun, trying to find words for something he barely understood himself. I think I touched something. Some kind of power or state that's different from anything I've learned about. And I think it might be the only chance I have of saving Bucho. Asia's expression shifted from concern to wonder. A miracle, she whispered. God works in mysterious. She stopped, remembering that as a reincarnated devil, she couldn't say God's name without pain. I mean, perhaps this is a sign. A gift given to you in your moment of greatest need, maybe. Issei wasn't sure he believed in divine intervention, but he couldn't deny something extraordinary had happened. But it's a gift I can't figure out how to use. I've been trying all night to recreate that state, and I can't. It's like trying to grab smoke. A new voice spoke from the stairway. That's because you're approaching it wrong. Both Issei and Asia spun to find a tall man descending the stairs. He wore a casual business suit with his tie loosened, and his black hair was slightly disheveled. But what caught Issei's attention were his eyes, golden, knowing, ancient despite the man's relatively young appearance, and wings. 12 black feathered wings spread from his back. Who the hell are you? Issei activated his boosted gear instinctively, green energy crackling around his left arm. The man smiled, showing no concern for the sacred gear aimed in his direction. Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels, creator of the artificial sacred gear system, and currently the most interested observer of your recent development. Asia gasped. The leader of the Grigori? But what are you doing in Ko? This is devil territory. Relax, Sister Asia. I have permission to be here. Azazel produced a document bearing the seal of the Gremry family. When I contacted Sirzex Lucifer last night, and told him I'd witnessed something impossible in his sister's pawn, he was quite eager to arrange a meeting. You were watching me? Issei's grip on his sacred gear tightened. Why? Because I'm obsessed with sacred gears, young man. It's my life's work, my passion, my singular focus. When I felt an unusual energy signature coming from this location last night, I had to investigate. Azazel walked past Issei to examine the destroyed training dummy. And what I found exceeded my wildest expectations. He turned, and the playful demeanor vanished, replaced by intense seriousness. Issei Hayato, do you have any idea what you've touched? Drake called it Mushin. Said it was some kind of legendary combat state. Mushin is close, but not quite accurate. Azazel began pacing, his wings folding against his back. Throughout history, across every pantheon and civilization, there have been legends of warriors who transcended normal combat, who moved without thinking, fought without planning, achieved victory without conscious effort. He stopped, fixing Issei with those golden eyes. The Greeks called it ataraxia, freedom from disturbance. Buddhist monks spoke of enlightenment in combat. The angels have records of something they called the divine reflex, a state where the body acts in perfect harmony with creation itself, unburdened by the ego's limitations. Okay, but what does that mean? Issei was getting impatient with the history lesson. Can you help me control it or not? That's just it, you don't control it. Control implies conscious direction, and this state is fundamentally about the absence of conscious control. Azazel started pacing again, speaking rapidly now, like a professor who'd found his favorite subject. Think of it this way. How much faster could you react if you didn't have to process information through your conscious mind? If your body could perceive threats and respond without the delay of thought? But that's impossible. How can you fight without thinking, is it? Azazel gestured at Asia. When Sister Asia heals someone, does she consciously direct every cell, every molecule of her sacred energy? Or does her body simply know what to do? Asia blinked, considering. I pray and wish for the person to be healed. My twilight healing does the rest. I don't think about the biological processes. Exactly. Your conscious mind sets the intention, but your body, or in this case, your sacred gear, executes with a wisdom beyond conscious thought. Azazel turned back to Issei. What you touched last night was similar. Your conscious mind, with all its self-doubt and overthinking, got out of the way. Your body, guided by instincts deeper than thought, acted with perfect efficiency. This fallen angel speaks truth, Drake confirmed. I have been considering the matter all night, and I believe this state transcends even dragon instinct. It is something more primal, more fundamental than any power I have witnessed. So how do I use it? Issei asked desperately. If I can't think my way into it, and I can't train for it normally, how do I access this power when I need it? Azazel's expression turned grave. That's the problem. Historically, the few who have claimed to achieve such a state did so through decades of meditation, martial training, and spiritual discipline. Some devoted their entire lives to pursuing it, and still only touched it briefly. For you to stumble into it after a few months as a devil, after experiencing crushing defeat, is impossible, Issei finished. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot lately. Not impossible. Just unprecedented. Azazel stroked his chin thoughtfully. Which makes me wonder, is there something unique about you? About your circumstance? What exactly triggered this awakening? Issei thought back to last night. To kneeling in the training room, broken by despair. To touching a void inside himself where hope and confidence had been. I gave up, he said quietly. I completely, totally gave up. Accepted that I was worthless, that I'd failed, that there was nothing I could do, and in that moment of absolute surrender, you found a power beyond ego. Azazel nodded slowly. The mystics would call that Kensho, a glimpse of enlightenment, but maintaining that state, especially in the heat of combat, is the challenge, Issei finished. He looked down at his hands. So what do we do? I can't just give up before every fight. And I definitely can't recreate that level of despair on command. No, but perhaps we can find another path to the same destination. Azazel walked to the center of the training room. The key is eliminating the interference of conscious thought while maintaining awareness. Tell me, when you're fighting normally, what goes through your mind? Issei considered. I guess I'm usually thinking about my next move. Where to dodge, when to attack, how to use my sacred gear effectively. And how often do those conscious decisions work out? Not very often, Issei admitted. I usually get hit while I'm thinking about dodging. Precisely. Your conscious mind is too slow. By the time you've perceived a threat, analyzed it, decided on a response, and initiated that response, your opponent has already adapted. You're always reacting to where they were, not where they are. Azazel spread his wings. Now I'm going to attack you. Don't think about defending. Don't plan a counter. Just let your body move. Before Issei could respond, the fallen angel leader vanished. No, not vanished. He moved faster than Issei's eyes could track, appearing behind him with a hand raised for a strike. Issei's conscious mind screamed danger. His instinct was to activate his sacred gear, to boost his power too. He forced those thoughts away. Remembered last night. The emptiness. The clarity. His body moved. Not a planned defense, but a simple sidestep that put him exactly where Azazel's strike couldn't reach. The fallen angel's hand passed through empty air, and Issei found himself behind Azazel, perfectly positioned for a counter. Good. Azazel spun, launching a kick. Again. Don't think. This time it was harder. Issei's mind wanted to engage, wanted to analyze the trajectory, calculate the timing. But he pushed past that, letting the emptiness return. Duck. Sway. Backstep. His body flowed through the motions like water, each movement minimal yet perfectly effective. Azazel increased his speed, testing him. The fallen angel was holding back considerably. Issei could sense that. But he was still moving far faster than Riser had during their raiding game. Yet somehow, Issei kept up. Not through conscious reaction, but through this strange instinctive knowledge that seemed to bypass his brain entirely. Fascinating, Azazel said, stopping the exercise. He wasn't even breathing hard, but he looked impressed. You can access the state deliberately, at least partially. That's already remarkable progress. Most warriors take years to reach this point. Issei was breathing harder, sweat dripping down his face. But I can't maintain it. The moment I start thinking again, I lose it. That's normal. The state requires tremendous focus, not mental focus, but a focus of being. You're essentially shutting down the part of your brain that normally governs conscious decision-making and letting deeper instincts take over. That's mentally exhausting. Partner, I must caution you, Drake interjected. This state, while powerful, puts enormous strain on your body. Your muscles are executing movements beyond your normal coordination. If you push too hard, too fast, you risk permanent damage. I don't care about the risk, Issei said immediately. 6 days, remember? I'll tear my body apart if that's what it takes. Noble, but stupid. Azazel's tone was sharp. If you cripple yourself in training, you'll be useless in the actual fight. No, we need to be smart about this. Build your capacity gradually while maximizing efficiency. He pulled out a small notebook and began sketching diagrams. The state you're accessing, let's call it Ultra Instinct for now, since that captures its essence better than the classical terms, has different levels. What you touched last night was likely the most basic form, Ultra Instinct sign. Your body moves reactively without conscious thought, but only in defense. There are higher levels? Theoretically. The ancient texts speak of a complete form where not just defense but offense also transcends thought. Where you don't just react to your opponent but flow through combat like a force of nature. But no one in recorded history has actually achieved it. Then I'll be the first. Issei's voice was utterly serious. Whatever it takes. Whatever I have to do. Azazel studied him for a long moment. You know, when I first heard about the current Red Dragon Emperor, I was disappointed. A perverted teenager with no discipline, no focus, no real commitment to mastering his sacred gear. But seeing this determination, he smiled. Maybe you're exactly the kind of paradox that could achieve the impossible. Someone too stubborn to accept limitations, too emotional to overthink, too reckless to be afraid of failure. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't one. But Azazel's smile widened. All right, Issei Hayadu. I'm officially intrigued. I'll help you develop this ability. But you need to understand something. This isn't going to be like normal training. We're not building muscle or magical capacity. We're essentially rewiring how your brain interfaces with your body. How do we do that? Combat. Constant, unrelenting combat against opponents who push you to your absolute limit. We need to force your conscious mind to give up control because it simply can't keep pace. Azazel's expression turned serious. I can provide opponents. Powerful ones. But this is going to hurt, Issei. More than anything you've experienced. Are you prepared for that? Issei thought of Rias crying. Of her resigned acceptance of a fate she despised. Of 1 week remaining until she became the property of a man she hated. I'm ready. Good. Azazel turned to Asia, who had been watching silently. Sister Asia, your role will be crucial. His body will break. Repeatedly. You'll need to heal him so we can continue training. Asia looked troubled. I don't want to see Issei-san hurt, but if it's to save Rias-sama. She nodded firmly. I'll do whatever I can. Excellent. Azazel clapped his hands together. Then let's begin immediately. Issei, you're going to fight me, really fight me, no holding back, for as long as you can maintain Ultra Instinct. When you break, Asia heals you, and we go again. Wait, right now? Issei looked at the destroyed training room. Shouldn't we prepare or… He didn't finish the sentence because Azazel had already attacked, moving with a speed that made his earlier demonstration look sluggish. A spear of light materialized in the fallen angel's hand, aimed directly at Issei's heart. Conscious thought would mean death. So Issei didn't think. His body twisted, the light spear passing so close it burned his shirt. His hand shot out, not to attack but to redirect, using Azazel's momentum against him. It was a technique Issei had never learned, had never even seen, but his body executed it flawlessly. Yes. Azazel's voice was excited, almost manic. That's it. Don't think. Just move. The training room erupted into violence. Azazel attacked from every angle, using light spears, martial techniques, feints within feints. Each assault was designed to kill, stopped only by Issei's unconscious defenses. And for brief, beautiful moments, Issei danced through the chaos untouched. His body flowed like water, each motion economical yet perfect. This wasn't the clumsy fighting of before. This was art. But it couldn't last. After perhaps 30 seconds, Issei's concentration wavered. His conscious mind, panicking at the danger, tried to reassert control. Immediately the fluid grace vanished, replaced by his normal uncoordinated movements. Azazel's light spear caught him in the shoulder, punching through muscle and bone. Issei screamed, dropping to one knee as blood poured from the wound. Asia! Azazel called, not sounding particularly concerned about having just skewered a teenager. The former nun rushed forward, her twilight healing already activating. Green light enveloped Issei's shoulder, and the wound began to close. Within seconds, it was as if he'd never been injured. Again, Azazel commanded. You maintained Ultra Instinct for 30 seconds that time. Let's try for 40. Wait, I need a moment too. The light spear came again, and Issei had no choice but to surrender to that empty state or die. They trained like that for hours. Issei would access Ultra Instinct, maintain it for as long as possible, then inevitably fall when his conscious mind interfered. Each time he lost the state, Azazel's attacks would land, not fatally, but certainly painfully. Asia would heal him, and they'd start over immediately. It was brutal. Exhausting. Agonizing. It was also working. By midday, Issei could maintain the state for a full minute before losing it. By afternoon, 2 minutes. And with each iteration, accessing it became slightly easier, like he was building new neural pathways, teaching his mind to step aside more readily. The other members of Rias's peerage arrived as evening approached, drawn by the sounds of intense combat. They found the training room transformed into a battlefield, with Issei and Azazel moving at speeds that left afterimages. What's going on? Kiba asked, his hand instinctively moving to summon his sword. Is that the Governor-General of the Fallen Angels? Are we under attack? No, Asia assured him quickly. Azazel-sama is helping Issei-sen train. He's developing a new ability. Kaneko Tuju, the white-haired rook, watched with her supernatural senses fully engaged. His movements are strange. Like he's not controlling his own body. That's exactly right, came a new voice from the stairs. Rias Gremory descended into the training room, her expression a mix of hope and concern. I received a message from my brother about this. Apparently Issei has touched something called Ultra Instinct. She walked to the edge of the training area, watching as Issei flowed through Azazel's assault. For a moment she saw something in her pawn that took her breath away, not the clumsy, earnest boy who'd become her servant, but something transcendent. A fighter who moved with the grace of water and the precision of death itself. Then Issei's concentration broke, and Azazel's light spear pierced his leg. Rias gasped, but Asia was already there, healing beginning immediately. How many times has this happened? Rias asked quietly. I stopped counting at 50, Asia admitted. But he gets better each time. Stronger. The periods between injuries grow longer. Rias watched as Issei stood up, determination burning in his eyes despite the exhaustion written across his face. He didn't even acknowledge the pain, just returned to fighting stance and waited for Azazel's next assault. He's doing this for you, Akino Himejima observed, the queen standing beside her king. Pushing himself to the breaking point because he can't accept losing you. I know. Rias's voice cracked slightly. I wish he wouldn't. I don't want him to hurt himself for my sake. Then you don't understand men very well, Azazel called out, apparently able to hold a conversation while simultaneously trying to kill Issei. Especially not men like your pawn. He's the type who'd rather die than fail someone he cares about. It's an admirable quality, if also somewhat problematic. Another exchange of attacks. This time Issei maintained Ultra Instinct for nearly 3 minutes before his concentration wavered. He took a light spear to the ribs but managed to twist away before it could punch through completely. Progress. Will it be enough? Kiba asked the question everyone was thinking. To fight Riser Phoenix, I mean. Even if Issei masters this ability, Lord Phoenix's immortality is. Nothing is truly immortal, Azazel interrupted. The Phoenix regeneration is powerful, certainly. But it has limits. It consumes magical energy. It can be overwhelmed. And more importantly, it doesn't matter how fast you can regenerate if your opponent can destroy you completely in a single instant. He paused the training, much to Issei's obvious frustration. The question isn't whether Ultra Instinct can beat immortality. It's whether this boy can push the technique far enough in 6 days to generate that kind of overwhelming power. Can I? Issei asked directly, breathing hard, covered in sweat and the blood stains from wounds that no longer existed. Azazel regarded him seriously. Honestly? I don't know. What you're attempting should take years, maybe decades. You have less than a week. The odds are astronomically against you, but not impossible. Not impossible, Azazel agreed. Just nearly so. You need to achieve something no one in recorded history has accomplished, reaching the complete form of Ultra Instinct from essentially nothing. You need to push your body and mind beyond their limits, break them down and rebuild them, over and over. I'll do it. Issei's voice cut through Azazel's listing of impossibilities. Whatever it takes. I'll achieve this power, and I'll beat Riser. Not because I think I can. Not because the odds favor me, but because the alternative, losing Bucho forever, isn't something I can accept. He looked at Rias then, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. You saved me, Bucho. Gave me a second life when I was killed. Gave me purpose when I had none. Gave me a family when I was alone. I'm not going to let some pompous ass take you away because I'm too weak to stop it, Issei. Rias felt tears starting again, but they were different this time. Not tears of despair, but of something else. Hope, maybe? Or pride in her servant's unwavering determination. Rest period is over, Azazel announced. We're going to increase the difficulty now. Issei, you've been fighting me solo. Now you're going to fight all of us. What? Issei's eyes widened. You heard me. Kiba, Kaneko, Akino, you're all going to attack Issei simultaneously. Don't hold back. The only way to force his mind to surrender control is overwhelming pressure. Azazel looked at Rias. You too, Rias Gremory. If you truly want to help your pawn, then become an obstacle he must overcome. Rias hesitated, but she saw the logic. And more, she saw Issei's accepting nod. If this was what he needed, she'd provide it. The peerage spread out, surrounding Issei. He stood in the center, activating his boosted gear, the green gauntlet materializing on his left arm. Partner, this is madness, Drake warned. Fighting your own allies at full power is exactly the kind of pressure I need, Issei finished. Come on, everyone. Don't hold back. Treat me like I'm Riser himself. Kiba moved first, his sword flashing. Then Kaneko from behind, her enhanced strength making her small fists lethal weapons. Akino from above, lightning crackling, Rias's power of destruction forming spheres of annihilation. And in that moment, facing impossible odds, about to be overwhelmed by his own friends, Issei felt it again. That emptiness. That perfect clarity. His conscious mind gave up, stepped aside, acknowledged it couldn't possibly handle this situation, and something else took over. His body moved through the assault like wind through trees. Not fighting against his friends' attacks but flowing around them, between them, becoming part of the rhythm of combat itself. He didn't think about dodging Kiba's sword. His body simply wasn't where the blade traveled. Didn't plan a counter to Kaneko's punch. His hand redirected her force into empty air without conscious direction. It was beautiful. Terrifying. Sublime. And watching from the sidelines, Azazel smiled. Because for just a moment, Issei Hayate had stopped being a clumsy teenage devil and had become something else entirely. Something that might just be enough to challenge the impossible. Partner, Drake's voice was awed. I believe we might actually have a chance. Yeah, Issei thought, not in words but in pure intention, his conscious mind barely present. We might. The training continued deep into the night, and with each exchange, Issei Hayate took another step toward mastering the impossible technique, toward becoming something the supernatural world had never seen before, toward saving the woman he'd sworn to protect. 6 days remained until the wedding. The real battle was just beginning. The second day of training began before dawn. Issei hadn't slept. Azazel had forbidden it. Sleep, the fallen angel explained, would allow his conscious mind to reassert its dominance over his instincts. Instead, they pushed through the night, forcing Issei's exhausted brain to surrender control more readily. The body doesn't need rest the same way the mind does, Azazel lectured as he launched another assault. Devils especially have supernatural stamina. Your conscious mind wants sleep because it's overwhelmed. But your instincts? They're tireless. Issei barely heard the words. He existed in that strange in-between state now, not fully conscious, not fully instinctive. His body moved through Azazel's attacks while his mind drifted, observing from a distance like a passenger rather than a driver. It was disorienting. Frightening. Also liberating. His power readings are fluctuating wildly, Kiba observed from the sidelines. The knight had been taking notes, trying to understand the mechanics of what Issei was achieving. Sometimes his magical energy spikes to levels that should be impossible for his class, then drops back to normal. That's because Ultra Instinct isn't about magical power, Azazel explained without breaking his assault pattern. It's about efficiency. When his body moves optimally, without wasted energy or motion, it can accomplish far more with the same resources. He's not getting stronger, he's getting perfect. Kaneko watched silently, her enhanced senses tracking every movement. He's not human anymore when he fights like that. Not devil either. Something else. Something pure, Asia whispered. She'd been maintaining a constant healing aura around Issei, catching injuries before they could fully manifest. The toll on her was showing, dark circles under her eyes, trembling hands, but she refused to stop. Like he's become an instrument of motion itself. Aquino stood beside Rias, both of them transfixed by the spectacle. Butcho, I've never seen anything like this. In all the raiding games you've fought, all the training sessions, neither have I, Rias admitted. Her crimson hair seemed dull compared to the intensity of Issei's transformation. It's like watching something emerge from a chrysalis. The Issei I knew is still there, but something new is being born. She thought back to the raiding game against Riser, to her pawn's desperate, clumsy attempts to land a single hit. That boy seemed like a stranger now. The fighter moving through Azazel's lethal assault bore almost no resemblance to the perverted teenager who'd become her servant. Time! Azazel called, stepping back. How long was that, Kiba? The knight checked his stopwatch. 14 minutes, 37 seconds. New record. Good. Azazel nodded approvingly. You're building tolerance. The longer you can maintain the state, the less jarring the transition becomes. Eventually, the goal is to make Ultra Instinct your default state, not something you enter but something you simply are. Issei swayed, his legs nearly giving out. Asia rushed forward immediately, her twilight healing intensifying. The green light enveloped him, and some color returned to his ashen face. I can keep going, Issei insisted, though his voice was hoarse. No, you can't. Azazel's tone brooked no argument. You're at the edge of complete collapse. We need to try something different now. He gestured, and suddenly the training room transformed. The walls shimmered and expanded, the space warping until they stood in what looked like a massive arena, easily 10 times larger than before. Dimensional expansion, Rias noted. You've connected us to one of the Grigori's training dimensions. Correct. Because what comes next needs more space. Azazel's expression turned serious. Issei, you've been training Ultra Instinct defensively, dodging, evading, redirecting. But Riser won't lose just because he can't hit you. You need to learn to attack from that state. I've been counterattacking, reactive counterattacks, yes. But they're still responses to your opponent's actions. True mastery means your offense flows from the same instinctive source as your defense. You don't wait for an opening, your body creates them naturally, exploiting vulnerabilities your conscious mind couldn't even perceive. Azazel walked to the center of the expanded arena. This is the harder part. Defense is relatively simple, you're removing obstacles from a path. But offense requires intent, will, desire to harm. Those are conscious processes. Merging them with instinct requires a different approach. Partner, I believe I can help with this, Drake spoke up. The Red Dragon's power is fundamentally about overwhelming force. If we can link Ultra Instinct with the boosted gear, channel that multiplied power through your instinctive movements. That's what I was thinking, Azazel confirmed. Issei, activate your balance breaker. Issei blinked. I don't have balance breaker. I haven't achieved it yet. You're right on the edge of it. I can sense it. Azazel pointed at the boosted gear. That sacred gear is screaming to evolve. You've experienced enough desperation, enough near-death situations. The only thing holding you back is that your conscious mind doesn't believe you can do it. So what? I just try really hard and it happens. No. You stop trying at all. Azazel's golden eyes gleamed. Let your body decide what it needs. Stop imposing your will on the sacred gear and let it respond to your instinct. It sounded impossible. Balance Breaker was supposed to be this monumental achievement, something that required specific triggers and circumstances. The idea that he could just let it happen seemed absurd. But then again, everything about the past 2 days had been absurd. Issei closed his eyes, feeling for that empty state again. His conscious mind protested. This wasn't combat. There was no immediate threat. Why would his instincts engage? But he pushed past that resistance, sinking deeper into the void, and felt something respond. The boosted gear pulsed on his arm, warm and alive. He'd always thought of it as a tool, a weapon to be commanded. But now, letting go of control, he felt it differently. The sacred gear wasn't separate from him. It was part of him, an extension of his will and instinct. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. The voice echoed not from the gauntlet but from inside Issei's very being. Crimson light exploded outward, and he felt his body transforming. Armor materialized, red and green scales covering him from head to toe. A tail extended from his spine. Wings erupted from his back, draconic and powerful. When the light faded, Issei stood encased in the Red Dragon Emperor's armor. Impossible, Kiba breathed. He just achieved Balance Breaker. Right now. Just like that. Not impossible, Rias said, though she looked equally stunned. Just Issei. Always exceeding expectations when it matters most. Issei looked down at his armored hands, flexing his clawed fingers. The Balance Breaker felt natural, like putting on clothes that fit perfectly. There was no struggle to maintain it, no sense of strain. His body had simply known it was time. Partner, this is remarkable, Drake said, genuine emotion in the dragon's voice. I've had many hosts achieve Balance Breaker, but never like this. Never so smoothly, so naturally. It's as if the armor simply recognized it was needed and manifested. That's exactly what happened, Azazel confirmed. When you're in Ultra Instinct, you bypass all the normal limitations and doubts. Your body simply does what's optimal. And right now, Balance Breaker was optimal. He spread his 12 wings. Now let's see if you can fight in it instinctively. Come at me, Issei. Don't plan your attacks. Don't think about strategy. Just move. Issei didn't consciously decide to attack. His body simply launched forward, moving faster than he'd ever moved before. The Balance Breaker multiplied his physical capabilities, and Ultra Instinct guided every motion with perfect precision. He appeared beside Azazel in an instant, his armored fist already in motion. The fallen angel dodged, barely, and Issei's punch obliterated the ground where Azazel had been standing, leaving a crater 10 feet wide. Yes. Azazel laughed, genuine delight in his voice. That's it. Again, they clashed across the dimensional arena, moving at speeds that left sonic booms in their wake. Azazel created dozens of light spears, launching them from every angle. Issei's body wove through the barrage, his draconic wings adjusting his trajectory mid-flight with impossible precision. And then, without conscious thought, Issei counterattacked. Dragon shot. The beam of pure draconic energy erupted from his armored hand, not because he decided to use the technique but because his body recognized the perfect moment. Azazel barely managed to erect a light barrier, and even then, the blast shockwave sent him skidding backward. Extraordinary, the fallen angel said, lowering his barrier. That attack timing was flawless. If I'd been Riser, that might have actually hurt him through his regeneration. Might have? Issei's conscious mind was more present now, curiosity pulling him partially out of the instinctive state. Not definitely? The Phoenix regeneration isn't just fast, it's instantaneous. Unless you can destroy his entire body in a single attack, he'll regenerate faster than you can damage him. Azazel created a light construct showing Riser's form. Your dragon shot is powerful, but it's focused. A beam. Riser could regenerate around it even as it's burning through him. Then how do I beat him? You need more power. Much more. Azazel dismissed the construct. The boosted gear's ability is to double your power every 10 seconds. In theory, there's no upper limit, but in practice, your body can't handle infinite multiplication. The theoretical maximum for a human turn devil at your level would be around 13 boosts, Drake explained. Beyond that, your body would tear itself apart from the strain. 13 boosts. Issei did the math. That's doubling 13 times. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, 8192. Over 8,000 times my base power. Which sounds impressive, Azazel noted, until you realize Riser at full strength is already operating at a level beyond that. He's a high-class devil from a pure-blood family. His base power is astronomical compared to yours. The weight of that reality settled over the group. Even with Balance Breaker and Ultra Instinct, the power gap was still enormous. However, Azazel continued, there is a way to potentially overcome that gap. It's dangerous, possibly fatal, and absolutely forbidden by every faction of the supernatural world. Tell me, Juggernaut Drive. The words hung in the air like a curse. Even Drake went silent. What's Juggernaut Drive? Asia asked quietly. The Balance Breaker's forbidden evolution, Rias answered, her face pale. A state where the sacred gear consumes its host completely, unleashing the full, unrestrained power of the heavenly dragon. It's unstoppable. Catastrophic. And always fatal to the user. Every host who has activated Juggernaut Drive has died, Drake confirmed grimly. The power is too great for any mortal vessel. It burns through life itself as fuel. Even if you win the battle, you lose yourself. Then that's not an option, Rias said firmly. I won't let Issei sacrifice himself like that. I wasn't suggesting he use it, Azazel clarified. But I am suggesting he touch it. Get close enough to feel that power, understand how to channel greater amounts of draconic energy without going over the edge. That's like asking someone to nearly drown to learn to swim better, Kiba protested. Yes. And if Issei wants to fight Riser and win, he needs to do things that should kill him but don't. That's been the entire nature of this training. Azazel looked at Issei seriously. I'm not going to force you. But if you want to generate enough power to overwhelm Phoenix regeneration, you need to push the boosted gear beyond its supposed limits. And that means getting uncomfortably close to Juggernaut Drive. Issei looked at Rias. She was shaking her head, clearly against the idea. He understood why. She'd already lost him once during the raiding game. The thought of him dying for real, permanently, was too much, but he also remembered her tears. Her resignation. The way she'd already started talking about their time together in past tense. How do we do it? Issei asked. Issei, no. Rias stepped forward. I forbid it as your king. I won't allow you to risk your life like this. Bucho. Issei deactivated his balance breaker, the armor fading away, leaving him in his torn training clothes. He walked to her, taking her hands in his. Do you remember what you told me when you saved my life? You said I shouldn't waste my second chance. That I should live fully and without regrets. I didn't mean, I know what you meant. But here's the thing about living without regrets. It means not holding back when something truly matters. And you matter, Bucho. More than anything. More than safety, more than caution, more than my life. Tears were streaming down Rias's face now. You're so stupid. So impossibly, frustratingly stupid. Yeah. I know. Issei smiled, that familiar perverted grin that somehow seemed different now, more genuine, less forced. But I'm your stupid servant. And I'm going to save you, even if you order me not to. I could use a command seal. Force you to stop. You could. But you won't. They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Rias closed her eyes, more tears falling. You're right. I won't, because as much as I hate this, as much as I want to protect you from yourself, I know that restraining you would hurt you worse than any physical injury. She opened her eyes, and they blazed with determination. But I'm setting a condition. If at any point during this insane training I sense that you're actually dying, not just hurting, not just pushing limits, but genuinely about to die, I will use a command seal to pull you back. Agreed? Agreed. Then. Rias stepped back, wiping her tears. Then do what you have to do. But come back to me, Issei. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. Azazel had been watching this exchange with an unreadable expression. Touching. Now that we've established Issei's death wish and Rias's reluctant enabling of it, let's discuss methodology. He gestured, and magical diagrams appeared in the air, complex patterns of ancient script and mathematical formulas. The juggernaut drive is triggered when the balance breaker is pushed beyond its tolerance, causing the sacred gear to abandon its safety limiters and consume the host's life force as fuel. To approach it without crossing the threshold, we need to manually push your power levels while maintaining conscious control. How? Issei studied the diagrams, not understanding most of them. Boosts. Rapid consecutive boosts without releasing the energy. Normally you boost a few times, then attack. The energy is expended, and you start over. But what happens if you boost continuously without release? The power builds exponentially, Drake answered. After a certain point, the container, Issei's body, cannot contain the pressure. That's when Juggernaut Drive manifests as an emergency release valve. Exactly. So we're going to train your body to contain more pressure. Azazel looked at Kaneko. You're the strongest physically in this group, yes? The white-haired rook nodded. Good. Your job is to hit Issei. Constantly. While he's boosting. The physical stress will force his body to adapt, to become a stronger container. You want me to beat up Issei while he tries to hold massive amounts of power inside his body? Kaneko's expression didn't change, but there was a note of concern in her voice. That sounds like a recipe for explosion. It is. That's why Asia will be on standby. Azazel turned to the former nun. Sister Asia, your healing is going to be crucial here. Not just repairing damage, but stabilizing his body's structure as it tries to contain power it shouldn't be able to hold. Asia looked terrified but nodded. I'll do my best. Everyone else, your job is containment. When things go wrong and Issei starts to lose control, you need to help suppress the power before it reaches Juggernaut Drive levels. Azazel addressed the entire group. This is going to be dangerous for everyone involved. Issei is about to become a living bomb that we're deliberately overcharging. Any objections? Silence. Then Kiba spoke up. We're all willing to risk it. For Bucho. For Issei, Aquino added. He's been carrying this burden alone. Let us share the danger. Issei felt a lump in his throat. These people, his friends, his family, were willing to put themselves in harm's way to help him save Rias. He didn't have words for what that meant. Then let's begin. Azazel stepped back, giving them space. Issei, activate your balance breaker and start boosting. Don't release the energy. Just accumulate. Issei took a deep breath, then called forth his armor again. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. The crimson armor encased him once more. He felt the familiar surge of power, amplified by the balance breaker state. Boost. Boost. His power doubled. He could feel it collecting inside him, pressing against his internal boundaries like water filling a container. Boost. Boost. Double again. The pressure intensified. It wasn't painful yet, just present. A fullness that wanted release. Boost. Boost. Now it was uncomfortable. Like taking a deep breath and holding it. His body wanted to expel the energy, to attack something and release the buildup. Keep going, Azazel instructed. Push through the discomfort. Boost. 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 6 boosts now. His power was 64 times his base level. The pressure was becoming pain, a burning sensation spreading through his body from the inside out. Kaneko, begin. The rook moved forward and, without hesitation, punched Issei in the stomach. Her supernatural strength behind the blow should have doubled him over, but the accumulated power inside him actually cushioned the impact, dispersing the force throughout his body. Harder, Azazel commanded. Make him feel it. Kaneko's next punch carried more force. Then another. And another. She struck methodically, precisely, targeting different areas to distribute the stress evenly. Boost. 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 9 boosts. 512 times his base power. Under Kaniko's assault, Issei's armor began to crack. The power inside him was straining against every cell, every molecule. He wanted to scream, but he kept boosting. Asia now. Green light enveloped Issei as Asia's twilight healing engaged. But instead of just repairing damage, she was doing something more, reinforcing his body's structure, temporarily increasing its capacity to contain the power. Boost. 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 11 boosts. 2048 times his power. This was beyond anything Issei had ever attempted. His vision was turning red. Blood vessels in his eyes were bursting from the internal pressure. His armor was spidering with cracks, emerald light leaking through. Partner, this is the limit. Any more and boost, boost, 12 boosts. 4096 times his base power. Something inside Issei snapped. Not his body, but something deeper. A seal, a limiter, a safety mechanism. He felt it break, and suddenly the power wasn't just building, it was changing. Growing darker, more violent, his armor began to shift. The red took on a purple hue. Spikes emerged from the shoulders and elbows. The eyes of the helmet glowed with malevolent green light. He's approaching Juggernaut Drive, Rias shouted. Everyone, containment formation. The peerage moved in perfect coordination, each taking a position around Issei. Rias created barriers of her power of destruction, not to attack but to contain. Aquino called down lightning that wrapped around him like chains. Kiba generated swords that formed a cage. Kaniko pressed her hands against his armor, using her senjutsu to try to calm the raging power. And Issei, inside the maelstrom, felt everything. The Juggernaut Drive wasn't just power, it was hunger. Rage. The accumulated hatred of every Red Dragon Emperor who had died in this cursed form. It wanted to consume, to destroy, to reduce everything to ash. But under that darkness, Issei felt something else. The emptiness of Ultra Instinct. The void that transcended emotion and thought. What if he applied that emptiness to the Juggernaut Drive? Instead of fighting it with willpower, what if he simply let it exist without giving it direction? He stopped resisting. Stopped trying to control the power. Just observed it, detached, empty. The transformation halted. The purple faded back to red. The spikes retracted. The malevolent glow in his eyes became normal again. Issei stood there, still containing 12 boosts worth of power, but no longer on the edge of losing control. Impossible, Azazel breathed. He suppressed the Juggernaut Drive through force of will. No, not force of will, through absence of will. He treated the power like an opponent, and instinctively found the perfect response: neutrality. Partner, what you just did should not be possible, Drake said, all evident in every word. The Juggernaut Drive has consumed every host who touched it. But you touched it, and simply chose not to engage with it. Like refusing a challenge instead of accepting or fleeing. I didn't choose anything, Issei said, his voice strange, layered, as if Drake was speaking through him. My body just knew that giving the Juggernaut Drive attention would make it stronger, so I gave it nothing. He looked at his hands, still encased in armor that now felt different, more balanced, like it had been purified somehow. Can I release this power now? Because I really want to hit something. By all means. Azazel created a massive target at the far end of the arena, a construct designed to measure and absorb energy. Let's see what 12 boosts combined with Balance Breaker can do. Issei faced the target. He didn't think about technique or form. Just let his body move. His fist drew back, pulling the accumulated power with it. The armor glowed brighter and brighter, until he was encased in blinding crimson light. Then he punched. The release of energy wasn't a beam or a blast. It was a wave of pure force that distorted space itself. The target didn't just break. It ceased to exist, along with a significant portion of the dimensional arena behind it. The shockwave rattled the entire dimension. When the light faded, Issei stood panting, his armor flickering. He'd released all the accumulated power in a single, perfect strike. Power level analysis, Kiba said, checking the magical sensors Azazel had placed. That attack registered at. Bucho, you need to see this. Rias looked at the readings, and her eyes widened. This says the attack was equivalent to a high ultimate class Devil's full power assault. Ultimate class, Aquino repeated slowly. Issei just hit with power comparable to a Mao. Temporarily, Azazel cautioned. That was the release of accumulated energy. Sustaining that level continuously would still be beyond him. But, he smiled widely, in terms of burst damage, Issei Hayadu just demonstrated he can generate attacks that would threaten even the strongest devils. He walked over to Issei, who had collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The Phoenix regeneration is fast, but it's not instantaneous against attacks of that magnitude. If you can land a strike like that, you could potentially overwhelm Riser's healing. Could? Issei looked up. Not will, you'd need to hit him. Cleanly. With your full accumulated power. Azazel held up his hand, counting off the challenges. Riser is fast. He can fly. He'll be actively dodging, and if you miss, you've expended all that built-up energy, and have to start accumulating again. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, which is where Ultra Instinct becomes crucial, Drake added. If your body can instinctively track Riser's movements, find the perfect moment, position yourself optimally, then landing that decisive blow becomes possible. So that's the strategy, Issei said, understanding crystallizing. I use Ultra Instinct to fight defensively, dodging everything Riser throws at me while accumulating boosts. Then, when I've reached maximum power, my instinct finds the opening and I unleash everything in a single strike. Exactly? Azazel offered a hand, pulling Issei to his feet. Of course, actually executing that strategy requires perfect mastery of Ultra Instinct, the ability to boost while fighting, and the physical resilience to contain that much power long enough to use it. All things you barely demonstrated today. How long did I maintain Ultra Instinct during that power accumulation? Issei asked. Kiba checked his notes. You lost it when you hit 9 boosts. After that, you were using raw willpower until you figured out how to neutralize the Juggernaut drive urge, so I need to learn to maintain Ultra Instinct even while experiencing the pain of power accumulation. Issei nodded. What else? Speed, Kaneko said quietly. Riser is faster than anyone in our peerage except maybe Bucho and Aquino in flight. You need to be faster, and stamina, Aquino added. A raiding game can last hours. You need to maintain peak condition throughout, and tactical awareness, Rias contributed. Riser won't face you alone. He has his entire peerage. You'll need to fight multiple opponents while implementing this strategy. The list of requirements was daunting. 4 days remained until the wedding. 4 days to master abilities that should take years or prove impossible. Then we'd better not waste time, Issei said, reactivating his balance breaker. The armor formed again, and he could feel it was slightly different now, like it had evolved from his near brush with Juggernaut drive. Stronger. More responsive. I like your attitude, Azazel said. But you need rest first. Your body is running on fumes and Asia's healing. 6 hours of sleep, proper food, then we resume. 6 hours? That's non-negotiable. Rias's voice carried her authority as king. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. 6 hours rest, then we continue. That's an order. Issei wanted to protest but saw the concern in everyone's eyes. They weren't just worried about him. They were worried about pushing him so hard he'd break before the actual fight with Riser. Fine. 6 hours. He deactivated the balance breaker, exhaustion hitting him like a wave now that adrenaline was fading. But then we go even harder. No holding back. Agreed. Azazel looked at the rest of the group. Everyone should rest. When we resume, I want to try something different, actual combat scenarios that simulate fighting Riser's peerage. Issei needs experience using Ultra Instinct against multiple opponents with different abilities. As the group began filing out of the dimensional arena, Rias hung back, walking beside Issei. They were silent for a while, just walking, before she spoke. You're changing, she said softly. Not just getting stronger. Changing fundamentally. I can see it in your eyes. You're becoming someone different from the boy I turned into a devil. Is that bad? No. Just bittersweet. I like that boy. His enthusiasm, his perverted innocence, his simple joy in life. Rias smiled sadly. But I suppose we all lose our innocence eventually. Especially in our world. I'm still me, Issei assured her. Still a pervert who dreams about a harem. Still the idiot who doesn't know when to quit. That hasn't changed, but you've added something to that foundation. Something that might make you stronger than any of us. Rias stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Issei, whatever happens in 4 days, whether you win or lose, I want you to know something. What? You've already saved me. Not from Riser, but from something worse, resignation. I'd accepted my fate. Accepted that I was just a piece in someone else's game. But watching you fight so hard, push so far, risk so much, it reminded me that I'm not just a gremry devil or a political bargaining chip. I'm Rias. And I'm worth fighting for. She kissed his cheek, a gentle gesture that made his heart race despite everything he'd just endured. So win or lose, thank you. For giving me back my fire. Before Issei could respond, she walked away, leaving him standing in the hallway, touching his cheek where her lips had been. She loves you, partner, Drake observed. In case that wasn't clear. Yeah. I know. Issei watched her go, determination crystallizing into something harder, sharper. Which is why I'm going to win. Not because I want to. Not because the odds favor it, but because losing isn't an option anymore. He headed to his room, 6 hours of rest ahead of him. But as he laid down, he didn't immediately sleep. Instead, he stared at the ceiling, playing through scenarios, visualizing the fight with Riser. He saw himself moving through Ultra Instinct, dodging flames and regenerating attacks. Saw himself accumulating power while fighting Riser's entire peerage. Saw the perfect moment, his body knowing without thought, and unleashing everything in a single, decisive strike. It was possible. Barely, impossibly, ridiculously possible. And Issei Hayata had never been one to let impossible stop him. 4 days remained. The countdown to the impossible continued. The 3rd day of training began with a revelation that changed everything. Issei woke from his 6-hour rest to find his body fundamentally different. Not stronger in the conventional sense, though he was certainly more powerful, but transformed at a deeper level. He could feel it the moment consciousness returned. His awareness had expanded beyond normal perception. He sensed Kaneko walking past his door before she reached it. Felt Asia's magical signature 3 rooms away, already awake and preparing breakfast. Detected the complex weave of Rias's power of destruction as she practiced in the training room below. What's happening to me? Issei muttered, sitting up. Your body is adapting, Drake explained. 2 days of intense ultra instinct training have started to rewire your nervous system. You're developing what some martial artists call predictive perception, the ability to sense incoming attacks before they physically manifest. That sounds useful. It is. And dangerous. Your conscious mind isn't equipped to process this much sensory information. You'll need to rely even more heavily on instinct to filter what's relevant from the overwhelming noise. Issei stood, moving to his window. Dawn was breaking over Ko Academy, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, Riser Phoenix was probably sleeping peacefully, confident in his victory, already planning the wedding ceremony. The thought ignited something fierce in Issei's chest. Not anger exactly. Ultra Instinct had been teaching him to release such emotional attachments, but purpose. Cold, clear, unwavering purpose. 3 days remained until Rias became Riser's bride. 3 days to achieve the impossible. He dressed quickly in training clothes and headed to the dining area. The entire peerage was already gathered, along with Azazel, who looked like he hadn't slept at all. The fallen angel was surrounded by floating holographic displays showing complex magical formulas and combat simulations. Ah, our star pupil awakens. Azazel gestured, dismissing the displays. How do you feel? Different. My senses are sharper. I can feel everyone's magical signatures even from here. Excellent. That's your body adapting to constant combat readiness. Most fighters take years to develop that level of ambient awareness. You've done it in 3 days through sheer necessity. Azazel pulled up a new display, a recording of yesterday's training. I've been analyzing your progression. Want to see something interesting? The recording showed Issei fighting in ultra instinct state, his movements fluid and precise. But Azazel slowed it down, highlighting specific moments with magical markers. Notice here, you dodge this attack half a second before it's actually thrown. And here, you counter an assault that Kaneko was only thinking about executing. You're not just reacting to physical stimuli anymore, you're responding to intent. Intent? The moment before an action becomes physical, there's a flash of intention, mental, magical, sometimes spiritual. Most beings can't perceive that flash, but your body, operating in ultra instinct, is starting to. Azazel looked genuinely excited. Do you understand what this means? You're approaching a level where you don't fight opponents, you fight the idea of combat itself. Issei tried to wrap his mind around that concept and failed. It was too abstract, too philosophical. But his body seemed to understand what his mind couldn't grasp, and that would have to be enough. So what's today's training? He asked instead, accepting the plate of food Asia offered him. He ate mechanically, fueling his body without really tasting the food. Today we test everything in the closest approximation to real combat conditions. Azazel stood, and his expression turned serious. I've contacted some associates. They've agreed to serve as opponents, devils from various factions who want to see if the legendary Red Dragon Emperor can actually achieve what the rumors claim. Rumors? Rias looked up sharply. What rumors? Word has spread through the supernatural community. A low-class devil servant attempting to challenge a high-class phoenix heir. Developing some kind of impossible technique. The story is generating interest. Azazel's smile was predatory. Interest that we're going to leverage. He pulled up another display, this one showing a formal document with the seal of the Gremory and Phoenix families. I've been in communication with Surzex. He's arranged for a formal rematch challenge to be issued. But there are conditions. What conditions? Issei leaned forward, his food forgotten. You have to prove your worth Riser's time. Publicly. Today. Azazel tapped the document. A demonstration match has been arranged in one of the underworld's public arenas. You'll face 5 opponents simultaneously, all high-class devils with centuries of combat experience. If you can defeat them using this ultra instinct ability, Riser will be obligated by devil law to accept a rematch challenge. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. 5 high-class devils? Kiba's voice carried disbelief. At once? That's suicide for someone at Issei's level. Under normal circumstances, yes. Azazel looked at Issei. But these aren't normal circumstances. Are they? Issei met the fallen angel's golden eyes. This was a test. Not just of his combat ability, but of his resolve. Could he really do what seemed impossible? Could he face overwhelming odds and emerge victorious? He thought of Rias's tears. Her resignation. Her kiss on his cheek last night, and the way she'd said he'd already saved her by giving her back her fire. When? Issei asked simply. Noon. 3 hours from now. Azazel smiled approvingly. The match will be broadcast throughout the underworld. Every major devil family will be watching. Including the Phoenix clan. If you win, you humiliate Riser publicly and force him to accept your challenge. If you lose, I'll be proving Riser right. That I'm just a weak pawn playing at being powerful. Issei stood. Then I'd better not lose. 2 hours later, underworld public arena. The arena was enormous, a circular structure that could hold thousands of spectators, modeled after ancient Roman colosseums, but with magical enhancements that allowed viewers to see every detail of the combat regardless of distance. Issei stood in the center, alone, staring up at the massive crowd that had gathered. Devils of all ranks filled the seats. He spotted various clan symbols, Citri, Agars, Glaciolabelas, and dozens more. In the VIP section sat Surzex Lucifer himself, along with his queen, Graphia. Beside them, looking furious, was Lord Phoenix and his son Riser. Quite the audience, Drake observed. I haven't seen a gathering like this since my last host fought in the Great War. No pressure, right? Issei tried to joke, but his voice was tight. Partner, you need to enter Ultra Instinct state now. Before the match begins. Let your conscious mind step back and allow your instincts to handle the stress of performance. Issei closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The noise of the crowd faded. The weight of expectation dissolved. He found that empty space inside himself, the void where thought and emotion couldn't reach. His eyes opened, but they were different now. Calm. Distant. Observing rather than engaging. Ladies and gentlemen. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, magically amplified. Today we witness an unprecedented challenge. Issei, low-class devil and servant of Rias, claims to have developed a technique that allows him to fight above his rank. The crowd murmured, some skeptical, some intrigued, many openly mocking. To prove this claim, he will face 5 high-class devil combatants simultaneously. If he prevails, Riser Phoenix will be honor-bound to accept a rematch rating game challenge. 5 figures emerged from the opposite side of the arena. Issei's enhanced senses analyzed them automatically. First, a massive devil with stone-like skin and earth manipulation magic. A tank-type fighter. Second, a female devil wreathed in wind, moving with supernatural speed. An agility specialist. Third, a thin devil radiating cold energy, ice crystals forming in the air around him. Elemental controller. Fourth, a devil carrying multiple weapons, each humming with magical enhancement. A weapons master. Fifth, a robed figure emanating powerful magical circles. A pure magic specialist. Any one of them could have defeated Issei's pre-training self easily. Together, they represented a threat that should have been insurmountable. Should have been. Combatants, take your positions. The announcer raised his hand. The match will continue until either Issei is defeated, or all 5 opponents are incapacitated. There are no other rules. This is a true devil's combat. Issei activated his sacred gear. Boosted gear. The familiar red gauntlet materialized on his left arm. Boost. Boost. His power doubled. He'd start accumulating immediately, turning his greatest weakness, low base power, into preparation for overwhelming offense. Begin! All 5 opponents attacked simultaneously. The Earth-type devil slammed his fists into the ground, causing massive stone spikes to erupt across the arena floor, limiting Issei's movement options. The Wind-type devil vanished in a blur of speed, attacking from multiple angles. The Ice-type created a blizzard that reduced visibility to near zero. The weapons master launched enchanted blades from range. The mage started casting a complex spell that made the air itself feel heavy with power. It was coordinated, professional, and absolutely lethal. Issei's body moved, not away from the attacks, through them. He flowed between the stone spikes like water, each step placing him exactly where he needed to be. The wind-type devil's strike passed through empty air as Issei's body shifted position a microsecond before contact. An enchanted blade whistled past his face, missing by millimeters because he tilted his head at the perfect angle. Boost. 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 4 boosts now. 16 times his base power. He was accumulating while fighting, just as they trained. The pain of contained energy was there, burning through his body, but his instincts filtered it out as irrelevant to immediate survival. The crowd was getting louder. They'd expected a quick execution. Instead, they were watching this low-class devil navigate an impossible assault without taking a single hit. He's actually dodging them all? Someone in the crowd said, disbelief evident. It must be a trick. Some kind of illusion magic. No, those are real dodges. Look at his movements. There's no wasted motion. It's like he knows where they're going to attack before they do. In the VIP section, Riser Phoenix leaned forward, his casual arrogance replaced by intense focus. What is this technique? Something I've only read about in the oldest texts, Sirzex answered, his voice carrying the weight of his position as a Mao. Combat consciousness that transcends thought. The humans call it many things. The angels have legends of something similar. But I've never seen it actually demonstrated. Back in the arena, Issei's opponents were getting frustrated. The Earth-type devil abandoned subtlety and charged directly, intending to use his superior mass and strength to simply crush this evasive pest. Mistake. Issei's body recognized the opening before his conscious mind could. As the massive devil swung a stone-covered fist, Issei didn't dodge away. He moved forward, inside the attack's arc where the leverage was weakest. His own fist, enhanced by 4 boosts, struck the devil's solar plexus with surgical precision. The impact sent the Earth-type devil flying backward, crashing into the arena wall with enough force to crack the reinforced stone. First opponent down. Boost. 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 6 boosts now. 64 times his power. The accumulation was becoming painful, but his ultra instinct state simply noted the pain and dismissed it as non-essential information. The wind-type devil changed tactics, creating cutting air blades that attacked from every direction simultaneously. Impossible to dodge them all, or so it should have been. Issei's body twisted, spun, ducked, and weaved through the barrage. Not because he'd calculated the trajectories, but because his instincts processed the patterns faster than conscious thought could. His hand shot out mid-spin, catching one of the air blades and redirecting it back toward its creator. The wind-type devil barely dodged her own attack, surprise breaking her concentration. In that microsecond of distraction, Issei was there. His palm struck her chest, not a devastating blow, but precisely placed to disrupt her magical flow and knock her unconscious. Second opponent down. The remaining 3 opponents hesitated, and that hesitation was fatal. Boost. 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 9 boosts. 512 times his base power. The pressure inside him was immense, his armor beginning to crack as it had in training. But he maintained control, keeping the accumulated energy contained while his body continued its perfect dance of combat. The ice-type devil launched everything he had, a blizzard of frozen death that should have turned Issei into a statue. But Ultra Instinct didn't care about should. Issei moved through the ice storm, his body instinctively finding the gaps in the crystalline assault, the spaces where no ice existed even for microseconds. He emerged from the blizzard directly in front of the shocked ice-type devil and delivered a simple palm strike to the forehead. The accumulated power transferred on contact, and the ice-type devil collapsed, overwhelmed. Third opponent down. The weapons master and the mage exchanged glances and activated a combination attack, enchanted weapons coordinating with area effect magic to create an inescapable killing zone. They clearly hadn't understood who they were fighting. Boost. 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 12 boosts. 4,096 times his base power. The same level he'd achieved in training when he nearly touched Juggernaut Drive. His armor was glowing now, cracks spreading across the surface, emerald light leaking through. The crowd was silent, mesmerized by what they were witnessing. This wasn't combat in the traditional sense. It was something else, something transcendent. Issei didn't think about his next move. His body simply acted. He became a blur of motion, appearing beside the weapons master before the devil could react. A single strike, not to kill, but to disarm and disable, sent the weapons master crashing to the ground. Fourth opponent down. The mage, realizing she was alone, poured everything into one final spell. A massive magical circle appeared above the arena, crackling with enough power to devastate a city block. Yield! The mage shouted desperately. You can't survive this attack. Issei looked up at the spell, his ultra instinct state analyzing it dispassionately. His body knew the truth, he couldn't dodge this. The area of effect was too large. The casting time was complete, so his body chose the only logical response. End the fight before the spell activated. Issei's legs compressed, dragon wings erupting from his back as he accessed partial balance breaker. He launched himself upward faster than the eye could track, not toward the spell but toward the mage herself. The mage's eyes widened in shock. She'd expected him to run or defend. Never imagined he'd attack directly while facing a lethal spell. Issei's fist, containing 12 boosts worth of accumulated power, drew back, and he remembered what Azazel had taught him. This wasn't about destruction. It was about precision. About applying exactly the right amount of force to achieve the objective. His fist stopped a hair's breadth from the mage's face. The shockwave alone was enough to disrupt her concentration, causing the massive spell above to destabilize and dissipate harmlessly. Then, gently, almost tenderly, he tapped her forehead with one finger. Just enough force to make it clear. He could have killed her but chose not to. The mage collapsed, unconscious from pure shock and magical exhaustion. Fifth opponent down. Issei landed in the center of the arena, surrounded by 5 defeated high-class devils, his armor still glowing with contained power, his body positioned in perfect readiness for the next threat. But there was no next threat. He'd won. The arena remained silent for a heartbeat. Then the crowd erupted. Not in celebration, many of them had bet against him, lost considerable wealth, but in sheer disbelief and awe at what they'd just witnessed. A low-class devil had just defeated 5 high-class opponents simultaneously without taking a single hit. It shouldn't have been possible. It was impossible. And yet they'd all seen it happen. Victor, Issei Hayadu. The announcer's voice was shaking. By the laws of devil combat, Riser Phoenix is hereby obligated to accept a rematch challenge. All eyes turned to the VIP section, where Riser Phoenix stood, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. His father placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering something, but Riser shook it off. This is a trick. Riser's voice boomed across the arena, magically amplified. Some kind of illusion or enhancement magic. No low-class devil could. Are you suggesting that 5 high-class devils from respected families all fell victim to illusions? Serzek's Lucifer's voice cut through Riser's protests like a blade. That would be quite the insult to their honor. And their families. Riser fell silent, realizing the political trap. If he claimed the match was fraudulent, he'd be insulting the very families whose support his clan needed. But if he accepted it as legitimate, he'd have to acknowledge that a mere pawn had done what should have been impossible. The boy fought well, Lord Phoenix said carefully. But parlor tricks in an exhibition match are different from a real rating game. My son has no obligation to. Actually, father, I accept. Riser's voice was cold now, his pride overriding his caution. Let me correct this farce personally. I'll face this pawn again and prove that luck and surprise tactics are no substitute for true power. He pointed at Issei across the arena. 2 days from now. Another rating game. Same terms as before. If you lose, you accept Rias becomes my bride and never interfere again. But when I win this time, I'll make sure everyone knows that this ultra instinct or whatever nonsense you're peddling is just smoke and mirrors. Issei deactivated his balance breaker, the armor fading away, leaving him in his torn training clothes. He was exhausted, the accumulated power finally released, but he forced himself to stand straight, to meet Riser's glare with calm, empty eyes. Accepted, Issei said simply. His voice wasn't loud, but in the silent arena, it carried perfectly. 2 days. I'll be waiting. The crowd erupted again, this time in excited chatter. A rematch between the Red Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix Heir. After what they just witnessed, this wouldn't be the one-sided slaughter everyone had expected the first time. This would be a real fight. In the VIP section, Rias had her hands clasped over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness this time, but of hope. Aquino held her shoulder, steadying her. Kiba and Kaneko watched Issei with something like awe. He actually did it, Asia whispered, her own tears falling. He's going to get another chance to save Bucho. Azazel stood off to the side, observing everything with calculating eyes. His experiment had succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. But he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The real test was still to come. 1 hour later, Occult Research Club. The celebration in the clubroom was subdued. Everyone understood that while Issei had won a great victory today, it was just the opening move in a much larger game. The real battle was in 2 days. You were magnificent, Rias said, hugging Issei tightly. She'd been doing that a lot since they'd returned, touching him, reassuring herself he was real and whole. I've never seen anything like that. The way you moved, the way you fought. It was like watching a completely different person. I was, Issei admitted. In that state, I'm not really me. Or maybe I'm more me than usual. I'm still figuring it out. What matters is that it works, Drake said. Those 5 high-class devils were legitimately powerful. The fact that you defeated them so decisively sends a message. You're a real threat now. But will it be enough against Riser? Aquino asked the question everyone was thinking. He's stronger than any of those 5 opponents individually. And his immortality can be overwhelmed, Azazel interrupted, entering the room. I watched the match carefully. Issei, that final accumulated attack you held back from using, that level of power could potentially overcome Phoenix regeneration. If you can hit Riser with that, hit him before he can dodge or defend, you might be able to finish the fight in one strike, Mike Kiba noted. That's not certain. Nothing about this is certain, Azazel agreed. But might is infinitely better than impossible, which is where we started. Issei has proven he can access Ultra Instinct in real combat. He can accumulate massive power while fighting. He's developed predictive perception that borders on precognition. These are tools that give him a chance. So what's the training plan for the next 2 days? Issei asked. He felt exhausted but also energized. Proving himself publicly had ignited something inside him, confidence that what he was attempting wasn't just a desperate fantasy. Rest tonight. You've earned it. Azazel pulled up tactical displays. Tomorrow, we focus exclusively on fighting Riser specifically. I've analyzed his combat patterns from your previous raiding game. We'll drill counters to his signature techniques, practice accumulating power while dealing with his flames, and work on creating that perfect opening for a decisive strike. And the day after? Rias asked. Final preparations. Mental conditioning. Making sure Issei can maintain Ultra Instinct even under the psychological pressure of a raiding game where everything is on the line. Azazel looked serious. The technique itself is merely the foundation. Executing it when it matters most, when failure means losing everything, that's the real challenge. The group discussed strategy for another hour before Azazel declared it was time for everyone to rest. They needed to be sharp, focused, ready for 2 days of intensive final training. As people began to leave, Rias pulled Issei aside. Walk with me. They left the clubroom together, wandering through the quiet halls of Ko Academy. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. They walked in comfortable silence for a while before Rias spoke. When I watched you fight today, I realized something. She stopped beside a window overlooking the school grounds. I've been thinking of you as my servant. My pawn. Someone I needed to protect and guide. But that's not right anymore, is it? I'll always be your servant, Bucho. Let me finish. Rias turned to face him, and her expression was intense. You're not just my servant anymore, Issei. You're becoming something else. Something greater. A fighter who can stand on equal ground with high-class devils. A wielder of power that even the Mao find remarkable. And, she hesitated, then continued. And someone I'm falling in love with. Truly, deeply, hopelessly in love with. Not just because you're fighting for me, though that means everything, but because of who you are. Stubborn, reckless, impossibly determined. You look at the word impossible and treat it like a personal challenge. Issei's heart hammered in his chest. He'd fantasized about Rias, certainly. Dreamed of her in the way teenage boys dream of beautiful women. But this was different. This was real, raw, vulnerable. Bucho, if you win, when you win, I want things to be different between us. Rias reached out, taking his hands. Not king and pawn. Not master and servant. But equals. Partners. People who choose to be together, not because of reincarnation or obligation, but because we want to be. I'd like that, Issei said honestly. I'd like that a lot. But first you need to beat Riser. I know. Rias smiled, though it was tinged with worry. Promise me something, Issei. No matter what happens in that raiding game, don't sacrifice yourself. Don't use juggernaut drive or push so far that you don't come back. Because a world where I'm free but you're dead is not a world I want to live in, I promise. Issei squeezed her hands. I'm going to win, Bucho. And I'm going to come back. And then we're going to figure out what we are to each other without the pressure of arranged marriages and political maneuvering hanging over us. Rias leaned forward and kissed him. Not on the cheek this time, but on the lips. It was gentle, sweet, and carried the weight of everything unsaid between them. When they separated, both were blushing, but both were also smiling. 2 days, Rias said softly. 2 days and everything changes. 2 days, Issei agreed. And then I show Riser Phoenix why you should never underestimate the determination of a pervert with a dragon and a dream. Despite the seriousness of everything, Rias laughed at that, a genuine, joyful laugh that seemed to lighten the heavy atmosphere. They walked back to the clubroom together, hands intertwined, both aware that the hardest challenges still lay ahead but also confident that they could be overcome. Because Issei had stopped being the weak, inexperienced pawn he'd once been. He'd touched something transcendent, achieved what the supernatural world considered impossible, and proven himself against overwhelming odds. And he'd done it all for one reason: to save the woman he loved. 2 days remained until the rating game that would determine everything. 2 days to perfect Ultra Instinct. 2 days to prepare for the battle that would reshape his destiny. The countdown continued, but now, for the first time, victory seemed possible. Not guaranteed. Not certain, but possible. And for Issei, possibility was all he needed. Meanwhile, Phoenix Estate. Riser Phoenix stood in his private training chamber, flames dancing around his body as he unleashed his frustration on magical targets. Each burst of fire obliterated its target instantly, only for new ones to materialize. Impossible, he muttered, replaying the footage of Issei's exhibition match in his mind. How does a low-class devil move like that? How does he develop power that can threaten high-class opponents in just days? Does it matter how? His queen, Eubelina, stood at the chamber entrance. The result is the same: he's become a legitimate threat. Underestimating him again would be foolish. I'm not underestimating anything. Riser's flames intensified. I'm the third son of the Phoenix clan. I've trained my entire life for combat. I have immortality itself backing me. One lucky performance in an exhibition match doesn't change the fundamental reality. I am superior in every measurable way. Then prove it, Eubelina said calmly. In 2 days. Decisively. Because right now, the entire underworld is talking about that pawn who defeated 5 high-class devils without taking a hit. Your reputation, our reputation, is at stake. Riser extinguished his flames, breathing heavily. She was right, and he knew it. The exhibition match had done exactly what Surzex intended: make this rematch a matter of pride for the Phoenix clan. Losing now would be catastrophic for his standing. Gather the peerage, he commanded. We're going to analyze every second of that match. Find patterns. Weaknesses. That Ultra Instinct technique might seem impressive, but every power has limits. We'll find his and exploit them. As Eubelina left to assemble the peerage, Riser looked at his reflection in the polished wall. He saw a handsome devil from a prestigious family, blessed with immortality, trained by the finest instructors. But he also saw something he didn't like: doubt. For the first time in his life, Riser Phoenix was genuinely uncertain about a battle's outcome. 2 days, he said to his reflection. 2 days to crush this upstart, and remind everyone why the Phoenix are superior. But even as he said it, a small part of him wondered, what if superior wasn't enough? What if determination, impossibility, and the heart of a Red Dragon Emperor could overcome even immortality itself? He didn't have an answer, and that terrified him more than he would ever admit.